believe more. I'm not convinced, whatever. Um, what I'm doing, what I'm gonna say is, I was expecting us to be in this position. My prediction was we're gonna finish second, and we're gonna need to be in a race. So I'm not shocked that we're in this position, because I believe our squad has enough quality to be in this position, despite everything that's happening. And I do give Allegri much credit for that regard. That, the things happening, it's not their fault. For his fault.
Yeah,
For Jolie, Pogba, like that's not on him. So I do give him credit for that, and to find a way to get these wins. At this moment in time. However, I'm still not impressed. And that might sound arrogant or not spoiled, because I don't think we have been spoiled lately. But with playing teams, we should be putting away much easier. And that's why I'm hesitant, because it will get tougher. And I'm like, I don't know how we are going to, how are we going to convert what we're doing now into more difficult situations against better opponents. That's my issue, and that's my hesitation at this moment in time. That's why I'm not fully sold on what's happening now.
I get it, but it's not on Allegri. And I've come to this term because of the fact that Cagliari game should have been a huge eye opener to everybody. Okay. That midfield had time and space all over the place, and they couldn't impose themselves. We're talking about 4 foot, 5 foot passes that these guys can't hit. Our only key pass that came out of the midfield in that game came from Federico Chiesa, who needs to stay forward, but he can't because our midfield fails time and time again. For me, games are won and lost in the midfield. We have games where we should be taking it to them. That Cagliari game should have been a blowout, but we can't finish. That's another thing. Vlahovic and Chiesa. So this is one of the big disillusions right now that's going around. And obviously, Chiesa had a great game yesterday. Got lucky on the second goal with the deflection, whatnot, but he played good. And everybody's talking this and that. He's not getting chances with Juventus. This is false. The numbers don't even back it. Lautaro Martinez, who's Capo Cañonere right now, has like maybe 8 more shots in total than Federico Chiesa. And Chiesa has played 200 and almost 20 minutes less than Lautaro Martinez. Shots on target, Lautaro around 17, Chiesa at 11 shots on target. Big chances missed by Vlahovic and Chiesa, 10 big chances missed by both of them. Okay, you bring in Keane, you bring in Milik, you bring in other players on our team, and big chances missed. We are the leader in Serie A for big chances missed. We are getting opportunities. The problem is that when you have games like Fiorentina, for instance, and the goals aren't coming because the guys are wasteful, you have a combination of a couple different things. Now all of a sudden it becomes this bigger thing that everybody's looking for, this answer and whatnot and all this. And for me, it's a disillusion. We are getting opportunities. There are games that are worse than others, but why? Why is that Fiorentina game just so bad that we dropped off so? For me, again, it stems from the midfield. Yes, our back line drops back, but the midfield doesn't press the ball enough to win it back quick enough, and they're not good enough at retaining the ball. And as soon as they can't retain it, and everybody's got to get lower and lower and lower, it's really hard for us. So even if you're trying to play a counter-attacking game, you almost can't because these midfielders they just cannot retain the ball. So you have a couple of different things in play here. Certain games, yeah, you want to ramp up that pressure. You want to pick things up. But a lot of it is execution of our guys. And those numbers are pretty bad. And I think maybe we wouldn't be talking so much about offensive issues if Federico Chiesa bags 3 out of those 5 big opportunities he missed, and Vlahovic gets 2 of them. All of a sudden, they got a few more goals to their names. Some of these games, we're not talking about scraping through 1-0 or whatnot, and maybe we're a little more comfortable through them, and it may change the tone. But the fact of the matter is, we can't just say that these guys aren't getting opportunities because the numbers don't back that up. They are getting opportunities. It's just that every game is different because you're playing a different opponent. So not every game is going to be the same. I'm under the assumption and I'm under the belief that against a team like Fiorentina that has a midfield like Arthur and Rolando Mandragora on the pitch, we should be the better team in the middle of the park. And our guys fell flat on their face, and they weren't. So for me, like at the end of the day, the guys on the pitch, you got to pick it up. Like if I'm out on the pitch and I'm getting known by a guy like Artur or Rolando Mandragora, my pride's gonna set in. And I'm gonna be like, what the hell am I doing backing off of this guy all friggin' game? And I'm gonna maybe go through him. I'm gonna maybe take a chunk out. Like at some point, these guys got to pick up their socks too and get it going. So I actually question how much of it is player related and how much of it is. I fail to see that they would just be flat out directed to not want to control the ball a little bit more than what they're doing or pressing the ball a little bit more. I can't really buy into that. And when we look back to the old Allegri sides, his first 5 years there with the club, we didn't play so over the top at the back, but we had quality players, guys that understood scenarios, guys that knew moments, when to hold the ball, when to take that foul, when to regroup. We had those guys. Right now, we got a lot of young players, man. If you look at the list of 23 U23 players on Juve, it's big. And guys got to understand moments. Miretti is a guy that's got to understand moments. Chiesa, as much as I love him, has to understand moments a little bit better. Vlahovic has to understand moments better. Rabiot's the same guy that's had one strong season. And he went out and I said, we're not going to miss him, you guys. We didn't miss him against Cagliari. The other guys just couldn't take advantage. I'm telling you, we need help in the middle of the park in the winter mercado. We really do, for me.
Okay, so first of all, people, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Secondly, I do not need to apologize to Allegri as a chat is suggesting because I said he should be in this position. So, like, he is in this position. I have nothing to apologize. He's been here 3 years on 9 million season. He's the one that needs to apologize to the fans, not me. Like, I don't need to apologize. That's the first two things.
Did somebody say you have to apologize?
Yeah, I know who it is, but like, whatever. I do not need to apologize. I will apologize if he wins the league because I said he cannot. He's not going to win the league. Then I will apologize. Other than that, whatever. Okay, so
the first 2 years were bad. Nobody can say anything otherwise than they were bad. So it is what it is. But he gets judged. He's still around this season, so now he gets judged on this season.
I agree.
That's how I look at it.
I'm looking at this season. I said it, like, he needs to be in this position. To go off the stats, funnily enough, I recorded a video for tomorrow, and I was going over the stats because I saw Vlahovic and Chiesa miss 5 big chances. I looked up Chiesa's chances. 2 of them were from outside the box. They qualified as big chances. You know, it was very tough. Okay, so the first part is he got 4 goals this season. Last one, September 23rd, excuse me, and I think Vlahovic is 16th of September, or switched him, is something like that. He scored 4 goals. His GA is 2.8. I don't really am looking at stats, whatever, but I looked it up because everybody was like, you know what Twitter is, 5 big chances missed. I'm like, okay, it could be. You know, I remember one last week. Should have put that away. So I was like, okay, let me look into it. And he's outperforming his GA. Then I said, you know, GA is not a good stat. I'm like, okay, then I can say big chance is not a good stat because I said, what does qualify as a big chance? And if you look it up, I mean, yes, some are big chances and some are like, that's not really a big chance, is it? So the stat thing, we can go back and forward, and we will probably, I don't think we will agree on it, but I do agree, like, there are certain moments in the game we need to put things away. The Verona game, that was crazy. But however, in general, when I watch us play, I never have a feeling we create a lot of chances. I never, like, not once this season, besides, you know, the Cagliari game, the Verona game. But if I think back about Fiorentina, Torino as well, Bologna, who else? Milan, even Milan to that extent, we don't create chances. Like, we don't, you know. The chances we had against Milan was Vlahovic taking a shot from outside of the box. Locatelli's goal was a deflection. Like we don't like when I watch Inter, they do create chances in and around the box, like real, like they put pressure on on goalies. They do
Pressure.
pressure,
Yeah.
but they are so present in and around the box. We heavily rely on because Kostic created the most chances this season in the league. If I tell you your eye test, does it confirm that Kostic created the most chances? Will you say yes? Will you say yeah? My eye test, it tells me indeed. When I think back of it, Kostic indeed creates a lot of chances. Like my answer is no. Like I cannot recall Kostic creating chances if that makes any sense. But he is at the top of the Serie A chances created. And when I looked it up a little bit. They're all crosses. You know, we play a type of football, and Kostic is key to what we do now. You know, I don't hate Kostic, but when I watch him play, I'm like, we're waiting on that one moment. That's not what it should be. You know, that when Junior comes in, I'm like, it could also be like that. You know, you can go both ways. So I get that Allegri is doing with what he has. Like he's working what he has, but he also has other options. He's refusing to use, you know, other things that could work. Cambiasso, Miretti, Chiesa, we've seen that works on the same side. That clicks. That looks dynamic, you know. But he chose one route, and I think it happened after Sassuolo. He went ultra, should I say defensive? Not, maybe defensive, but like ultra careful. You know, it's very calculated. It's very low risk taking. You know, if you look at the stats as well, for our first halves, we do nothing. You know, we turn up in the second half. In terms of now, we try to not chase a game, but try to put a game away because we haven't done that in the first half, you know. And it's worse at home, which is a bit weird than away from home. We perform better away from home, you know, if you look at the stats as well. But the chance thing created, I don't think we create enough chances personally, you know. And when I can recall chances missed, I don't think that's a good sign because I shouldn't recall those things because it should be so much, like so much. Like we should create that amount of chances that I should not, you know, pick and choose. If that makes sense, that's that. And also, the Chiesa thing, you know, position and you know we'll get into position and Chiesa in general. I'll keep saying it, and I don't want to make it. I don't want to. I'm not going to name names. We set up in a way to help out certain players. We do that because we lack certain things in the squad. I agree with that. You know, 100%. I agree with that. But whilst we're doing that, a group of players is struggling, and it's not Chiesa, it's not Vlahovic, it's Chiesa, it's Vlahovic, it's Milik, it's Keane, whoever, you know, whoever plays up there up front is struggling. There are good moments, but overall, if you look at the first 12 games and you put all the forwards in one basket, it's very empty. You know, it's not good. You know, it's a bit worrying. And I saw your short on Chiesa. You know, did he take a shot at Allegri? I kind of agree with you. Maybe it's not really a shot. He was very honest, but in that honesty, I think he said a lot. You know, I think, and even when Spalletti came out and he emphasized it, it felt like he was making something clear to, I don't know, us, the fans, when he said on the left, and he said it twice in the same, I don't know, 30-second cameo he was speaking, and he said like on the left he is devastated. And then he went on, he said, you know, I just put him on the left and I know what's going to happen. When I watched Chiesa yesterday, and I didn't watch the complete game, I'm not going to lie, I watched highlights, I watched the goals, and I watched an extended 5-minute clip of him, you know, from yesterday's game. He looks happy out there. You know, he looks like Chiesa. When I watch him for us the last games, he doesn't look like Chiesa. He looks very frustrated. He's struggling, in my opinion. It doesn't look electric. He's forcing it a little bit, maybe because he knows, you know what, it's not coming off for a couple of weeks, months, basically, 2 months now. And it feels a bit forced. It feels a bit unnatural. It doesn't fit well, you know, and it goes for everyone up top. That's my issue. And the midfield part, I agree that we struggle to control midfields. I agree. But do you think our midfield is that poor? You know, because in terms of, you said the players need to step up, and I agree with that as well. But if it's one, I would agree, you know, or two. But if it's a couple, I think it's a bigger issue. No, you know, let's say we were scoring goals and Vlahovic was missing everything, not scoring for weeks and months. I could say, you know, it's you. You know, like everybody's doing well, but you're not showing up. But when I look at the whole, I think everybody is a bit struggling. That gets me to a point where I'm like, yes, it's you, but maybe it's not just you guys, you know, because I don't think Locatelli is a poor player, or like, I don't think he's a bad player. I think Miretti is a good player as well. He has great potential. But then he gets moved around as well. I'm not a fan of that as well. But overall, I think players are. So I don't know if I need to say struggle because we're winning games, but I think players with a higher ceiling, I'm gonna say that, with a higher potential, they they are a bit struggling, in my opinion. You know, and that's my big
So
worry. You know, that's my biggest fear at this moment in time for certain players in this team, that they're not showing their capabilities, and we need these guys to show up like big time, because this thing, what we're doing now, it's all good, but we need better. I think a lot of people feel like this is not going to be very sustainable, in my opinion. You know.
there's there's a lot of points to hit on in there. I'm going to try my best to start with the pressure, okay? And talking about Inter, talking about how they play and the pressure. Well, it's not the same for them every game also, because it
Agree.
matters on what the other teams do. They will send numbers, a lot of numbers forward when it presents itself the opportunity. As far as the biggest difference between that team and our team is the amount of pressure they can sustain once they get up there, but they can do that because of the work their midfield puts in and the pressure from those guys. Our midfield doesn't do that, whether it's directed or by the players. But there are a lot of games that 50-50s we fall short in, and the guys got to pick up their socks and do better.
Really,
Locatelli,
wait,
who I like.
really quickly, because
Okay,
you said that point, and I agree with that. They can put, you know, sustain more pressure, whatever. Inter created a lot more chances than us. Is it maybe then? Is it maybe then unfair to say, um, the player, like our players, had less chances, and when we look at the missed things, like it doesn't add up, if you know what I mean. Like they have less opportunities to mess up. You know, let's say they have two chances, they mess up two, it's over two. Let's say an Inter player has four, he messes up two, but he takes two, it's two for four. It looks different. Like, is that also a
it's
fair thing to suggest? Because Inter do create more chances than us.
taking the numbers aside. Still, you're looking at their top players that Lautaro and Chiesa are close. Okay, there's chances that haven't been counted in his shots on target that literally because they didn't hit the target have to go. They're still on par. And if two more games are added in there, I think they're smack dab in the middle. But besides the point of that, at what point do we look at this and say, okay, sustained pressure from Inter? Is DiMarco, who do we have that is level to DiMarco on the outside? With the pressure he applies, the way he plays, like our best on the left side has arguably been, even if you pick Cambiasso or you pick Kostic, I'm picking DiMarco over them.
Oh yeah,
If you're
now
looking
yeah.
at the middle of the pitch, the way those guys played, the way they retain the ball, and the way they distribute it, we might not have a midfielder that makes it into Inter's lineup.
I I agree with that. I agree with that. But we struggle against Cagliari, against Bologna,
Exactly.
and that's my issue.
Exactly.
Then I'm like,
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. When we take this into consideration, we look at this. For me, when I'm looking at a coach, okay, and I'm looking at these games, his biggest task and the most important thing is, has he put, this is the question I ask, has he put the team in a position to win? And I think if we look at the games this season, there might be two that you can argue we maybe made some errors from Allegri there in terms of adapting, in terms of changes and whatnot. But for the most part, this team has fallen short on bagging goals. And the chances in certain games where they're falling short and they have to scrape through, those games, they had a ton of chances. Like if we're talking about scraping through against Verona, my God, we had 30
I agree with that
opportunities and
against Verona.
these
Yeah,
guys can't execute whatever. You look at some of these games, they're in the position to do what they need to do. But again, if you're looking at Cagliari, that for me is a huge eye opener because they couldn't impose themselves through the middle of the pitch. And there was not a single key pass that came from one of our midfielders. If I look at that game, and if I look at a guy like Locatelli, who I like and I do believe in, if you look at when he returned from the Azzurri and then put in that shift for us, that game was night and day from watching Locatelli as we normally watch. Everybody could see it. He hasn't done that again since. And that's not because of a coach. Like, that's on the player. The fact that one game he's moving, he's pressing, he's getting the ball, and he's finding these passes, finding these through balls, and taking those shots. And then all of a sudden, he just looks like he's uninterested in taking these passes or trying them or attempting them. I don't know how to explain it. Like, that's got to be on a player. Like, there has to be this line drawn, coach to players. And for me, it's, are you in a position to do your job? So if we're looking at a midfield and say a team wants to rule Locatelli out, which is hard to do because he will drop even beyond the center backs if he has to pick up that ball and move it around or whatnot, you got to find an alternative. But through all the games I've watched, there's probably only two where I can say maybe we should have adjusted things or changed things up slightly here or there. But for the most part, these guys are in a position to succeed. And they are succeeding for the most part because look at where we are. The only thing is we want more goals. Well, at some point, you got to realize that through a lot of these games that we're scraping through, there's opportunities there that are falling to guys. And I'm more leaning towards the side where I've felt in certain moments the pressure needs to ramp up to get more opportunities. But also in some of those games, they've had chances they got to finish. And Cagliari was one of those. Verona was another one of those. If we go earlier in the season, there's a few more where we could be bagging more goals. These guys just aren't. And it is what it is. You want more chances? We all want more chances. I want more sustained pressure, but I'm looking at the guys as to why they can't dial it up further and take control. A team like Fiorentina, for me, that our midfield should have run rampant on them, and they couldn't. Cagliari, you absolutely have to run rampant on Cagliari, but they can't. They don't. And for me, I think the next step for this game, a team usually plays to their strengths. Our strength is the defense. But in order for what we all want, what we all agree on, for me, the key thing is the midfield. And you asked the question, is it that bad? It's missing key components. And even if we talk about Rabiot, who is, they want to say it was our best last season and everything like that, sure, that's fine. But even he can't impose himself in helping us sustain pressure and take that over. And his ball retention sometimes isn't the best. Miretti has no end game, ultimately. Like, sad, like for me, Miretti needs a loan. Fagioli, even as much as we all love Fagioli, if he was in this season, I don't think he's gonna be game breaking for us.
no,
Like,
I agree with
we
Fagioli.
need quality in the midfield, the ball retention, the general. Like, we need more help in the midfield. In my personal opinion, we need two midfielders to help us out. But until you see that, I don't think we're going to get what we want out of the control and more balance and more possession and all this. I just don't think it's there. I don't think it's there. I think like it's not a matter of us just choosing like we're going to do this and that's it. I honestly believe with these guys, you're maybe almost tapped out. You might almost be tapped out unless you try a change of setup, but there's going to be some risk involved. And why change? That's my whole point right now is like, why change to try and get a few more opportunities if we can see that there has been some wasted opportunities there? I would continue as we're going and try to see if we can get that pickup from the midfield and get like Miretti to take that next step, take that next level. Rabiot needs to wake up and be an imposing midfielder with his size, his stature, and everything. Like he's gotta do more this season. For me, anyways. I think he's ghosting for quite a few.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Like I agree, we need players. I do agree with that. Like I'm not saying that midfield is perfect, whatever. I'm not blind to it. Like I know. However, I've seen Fiorentina live over here, like in Belgium where I live, because they played my hometown team here. I went to the stadium. My hometown team dominated that midfield with, I won't say scrubs, but worse players than Juve in midfield. They dominated.
Yeah.
They struggled the first 15 minutes, and that coach made an easy adjustment. He just moved somebody, across Arthur, and it was done for Fiorentina. It was just done. They were completely out of the game for 90 minutes. So I've seen like also inconsistent players because they did that one game. Are having an inconsistent season. So I've seen that. I agree we need to sign midfielders. We're missing certain things. I do agree. I also agree that Fagioli, like everybody loves him. I don't think he is the finished article, and I think this ban is not a good sign for him. Like I'm very confused with the situation because we're gonna sign midfielder. So I'm not sure where that's gonna leave him as well. The Miretti one is he's wasteful, and I'll keep saying it, and people can shoot me down. If he's not playing in a team with runners, he looks lost. He looks lost. He doesn't like he's not a player that is gonna keep the ball at the edge on the edge of the box like he gets in those positions, and then is gonna you know take a few turns. He wants to play quickly, and it needs to happen quickly for him and everyone. So he will struggle. That's why I said when he played on the left with Cambiaso and Chiesa, it looks good because it is fast, it is quick. They all can play. Like it's not like Rabiot who needs 10 touches, one turn back, and then plays it sideways again. That's that's not his cup of tea, and he will struggle. The way we play, Miretti will struggle. He will struggle. So I feel for him as well a little bit. The Locatelli one, I have a love-hate relationship with him. I see people saying, "Oh, he's that this." I've not seen it ever since he joined. I've seen it at spells, but overall, I've not seen this. I believe he can do this because I've seen him do this. But when he's not doing this for 2-3 years, that's my point. A player cannot be bad for 2-3 years. Like at one point, I need to turn around. I'm like, come on, coach. Like this cannot be happening. Like he's very inconsistent. Not one season, not one game. It's been a while for me. So I get a player can have a bad patch and you need to step it up. But when it's for multiple years or like months and games, I'm like, something is up here. Like something is not adding up. And I'm gonna throw something out there, and that's not shade to McKennie. But when McKennie looks like your best player in the squad or one of your best players, we have an issue. Like we have an issue, and that's not shade to McKennie because he's doing his job, what he's asked to do, very well this season. But he's playing in positions as well where there should be a player with much more quality. Like for example, he's doing well, but when he's one of your best, he looks like one of your best players. In my opinion, we have an issue, and that's not a shade, and that's not me saying, "Oh, I hope he does bad," or like you know what I mean. But when he's one of your
It's not the problem.
bright lights, I think we have a massive issue because I look around and I see better players on the pitch, players who should be better week in week out, and they're not. Then I'm very worried because if, like you said, players need to do better. But if it's 1, 2, 3, 4 players across the team, I'm like, something is up here. And playing to the strengths to get the results, fine. That's what we're doing now because we set up this way. I still believe with the players we have, we can play a different type of football, especially against bad teams, because in the second half, we can put on some sort of pressure. because I think Cagliari played in the first half. In the second half, they I cannot recall them crossing midfield, to be honest. And we do that a lot of games. Like it's not suffocating pressure, if you know what I mean, but we keep them at bay. We do keep them at bay. But then the issue is now it's time to make the flip of, in terms of, okay, now we're actually going to push them backwards because we can keep them at bay. And now it's time to keep possession because Allegri comes out every game saying, we're wasteful and we're this and we're that. And I'm like, I agree, but if you need to say that week in, week in, dating back to last season, like I don't really want to or call it out and say I don't have the players. Like Ralf Rangnick at Man U, was it 2 seasons ago? I'm not sure. He was like post game, he was very clear. He said why we lost is because I have a group of players, they cannot keep hold on to the ball. And then he was asked about Rashford and he said like he cannot keep hold on the ball. And that's an issue now for us. And he benched Rashford. I respect him more if he does that, if it makes sense. Instead of coming out saying we don't do this well, we don't do that well, and then the next week it's the same issue, because that makes me think, okay, you're not finding the solutions. Then you're not doing. That might sound harsh, doing what you're paid for, because as of now he's winning, so he's doing what he's being paid for. But over a span of 3 years, he had different players he wanted, and for me, it's the same issue for 3 years now. Like he wanted Pogba, whatever. He wanted Paredes, Di Maria. Like he wanted these players, and it still looked the same. So I cannot put it all on the players because I agree they need to do better. But when I look at 3 years and he had players he wanted as well, and it looked the same, I also need to look at the coach, and I'm like, it's also you. Like you need to find a solution now as well. And this is extreme. He's playing with quote unquote kids. When everybody says kids, it's only Miretti, like Yildiz and Hoysen, they get garbage time minutes, so it's actually Miretti playing in that team now, and I agree it's inconsistent, as I don't know, 50% of the team is inconsistent, but when I look at 3 years, I'm like, you got your players as well, and it looked the same. Then it's tough for me to say it's all on the players. Like they're not good enough.
But the